Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining us once again at the Uncommon Connector, a podcast hosted by Functional Training Zone. Today, we are speaking with Aaron Mendez, and I'm excited to definitely talk with him.
There is no one else in creation like you. There's nobody like you. And what you've come to do and what you have to offer is like no other.
Can you tell us a little bit about the work that you do?
Sponsored by.
Yeah, I'd love to. Thanks for having me, first and foremost. Like you said, I'm Aaron Mendez. I'm based in Los Angeles, California. Born and raised here. I'm a freelance cinematographer. I primarily hang out in the documentary sports world. My niche is kind of small crews, high level execution, lots of different tools. I shoot the Olympics for NBC. I do a lot of athlete features. I do Sunday Night Football opens for them. But at its core, I'm a storyteller, and I love telling human stories. And I have a passion for moving the camera in different ways, whether that be with gimbals or drones or anything else. And so that's what I currently do now. And I have it's been a long period. I've been a freelancer for a very long time, and there's no shortcut to this game, that's for sure. I've been in it for about 15 years. I've been playing with cameras all my life, but I had a couple careers previous to this, which I'm sure we will get into. But that's kind of what I do now. I'm a documentary sports cinematographer, telling human stories.
That is awesome. Thank you for
Yeah.
that. What drew you to this career field? And I know that you said you've been in it about 15 years, but yeah, if you can just tell us how, what drew you this to this career field and how you got into it.
So I've always had a love for storytelling, and I was fortunate to grow up with a father who was a camera operator in the industry. So he had that kind of storytelling, technical kind of knowledge. He did have his master's degree, and so after he worked in the film, he worked on shows like Bosom Buddies and Family Ties and Charlie's Angels and a lot of those like early '80s movies or TV shows as a camera operator. And so I kind of grew up around it, adjacent to it. We had early cameras. I had early Sony Handycams. I spent a lot of time doing extreme sports, BMX, skating, blading, snowboarding, surfing. And so I wasn't the best at any of those things between me and my friends. So I gravitated towards being the guy that would hold the camera and like shoot my friends doing awesome things, right? I could always kind of hang and hold my own, but I was definitely not doing the best tricks. So I developed my eye for shooting action. And so with early cameras, I developed a love for that and capturing moments, and I think that's probably why I'm in the sports industry now. I love the spontaneousness of live sports, of like no do-overs, of no second chances, of high stakes situations where you kind of have to make something happen. And so that hasn't always been my comfortability, but I think after many, many reps, it has become my love and what I really love to do. So yeah, that's what kind of drew me to the industry. I was pretty fortunate to have a father who was in the industry with tools at my disposal and friends willing to let me, shoot videos of them, essentially.
That's awesome. Where did you study?
Yeah.
Like, how did you start out? I know you said your father was an advocate in terms of giving you accessibility to these tools, but where did you get any formal training or anything?
So my formal training was, I went to Cal State Fullerton, which is where my dad, this is a junior college in Orange County, out of high school. I was trying to figure out what I was going to do. I was a business major at first, but 10 years prior to that, my father taught at this school and he was teaching three camera studio production. So at like 9 or 10 years old. I'm in there on cameras, so it was already familiar to me. I didn't think that that was something that I wanted to get a degree, but after my second accounting class, I realized, okay, maybe I don't want to be doing math and accounting, and maybe a business degree. It could help me, but essentially, I transferred to Cal State Fullerton, and I went from being a business major to TV film major. And really, that was where I developed my passion, started really getting my hands on new tools. This was a transitionary period. This is like 2003, 2004-ish, where film was kind of fading out. New nonlinear editing systems were coming up. With a dad in the industry, I started on Final Cut Pro version 1, and had access to a lot of these early tools. And so by the time I got into Cal State Fullerton's TV film program, I was already pretty well versed. I was shooting weddings, I was doing corporate kind of videos, and I think the idea was, okay, I just want to get a degree in something, not really knowing that nobody was going to ever ask me for my degree in this field of work. They want to see what you've done and what you can do now. And I guess if I were going to do things over, maybe I was stuck with the business degree and have that been more rounded thing. But that's where I got my formal training, and out of there, I went straight into, actually, I graduated and I left turn into real estate, where my uncle was a broker. He had 60 agents working for him. Real estate was booming at this time, 2003, 2004, and I became like the media photos and video guy for 60 of his agents. So I took photos, I did virtual tours, early like 360 virtual tours that I was doing of these properties, and that was great and that was fun for me, and I really got to cut my teeth on making like training videos for him in his office. But what I ultimately ended up doing was realizing, oh well, I can make more money if I'm a realtor, an actual agent, and then I could use my own skills to help myself and my business. And so that's what I did for about 8 years. I was in the real estate industry, and shooting my own pictures and videos, and so that stunted my dive into the actual production world. But when the market went off a cliff in 2008, and the whole real estate market kind of changed, and it was kind of a dire situation, that's when I kind of got out with newborn twins on the way. I have a 15-year-old twins. So in 2009, I had twin girls, and I realized, okay, well, we're going to try this video thing again, and I'm going to dive into that. And that I haven't looked back since. So that's what I kind of did.
That's awesome. That's a really great story. For
Yeah.
somebody just starting out, would you suggest any courses or certifications to get, more knowledge into this field? Let's say that you're meeting somebody new that definitely wants to explore this field, but they don't have kind of the resources that you had growing up in terms of your dad having all of the tools at your fingertips.
You know what I didn't have that everybody has access to now? YouTube. And you can literally find anything online. There's so many different lighting courses, paid and non-paid. So many people just put their stuff out there. And also, with AI tools and ChatGPT and stuff, in a way to search the web and hone in on what you really want. I think nowadays you can find almost, information is no longer democratized, right? You don't have to go to a college campus and get that information in a classroom. Some people need and want that and like to grow and learn in that kind of environment. It's not necessarily for me. I'm very self-motivated, and I can, if I have an interest in something, I can dive in and hyper focus and learn that. So that's something that has definitely helped me. But I think you can get any information you want right now on YouTube. I would say if you're just starting out, the most important thing is throw yourself in many different directions, because you don't know what you don't until you figure it out, right? And the only way you're going to figure out what your passion is and what you really like to do and what you want to do and what you're good at is by trying a lot of different things and then realizing, okay, well, this is my direction. And if you don't try things, then you never really know. And it's important to also just throw yourself at things and fail. And I feel like one of the things that I've been really good at is throw myself at new opportunities and things, even if it doesn't necessarily work out. And you throw yourself into the fire. Sometimes you get a little bit burnt, but when you get out of that, you have perspective, right? And then you have a new direction. And now that's always kind of been my way, is just throw myself blindly at things and figure out if it works for me.
Okay, that's great. So, how would you say this industry has changed since you first started? I'm sure that just with the way that technology has just kind of taken off the camera industry, I mean, now there are a lot of people, amateur recorders like myself and some pro recorders that are just using their cell phones and using the devices that they have right at their fingertips to, capture their moments, capture their memories. What would you say is, one of the biggest things that has changed since you first started?
I think the technology has changed. That's the biggest thing that's changed. The technology was always kind of a gateway to get into the industry, and you had to afford an expensive camera or a red camera or an RA. And nowadays, a lot of these images are looking very similar, and it's very nuanced on like the image and the lenses. You can get a great looking image, a professional looking image out of an iPhone. I mean, out of a Sony FX3, small DSLR type cameras. Obviously, as you're doing more and you're getting into more niche areas where you need higher frame rates or higher resolution, then your camera has to grow with you. But I think at this time, the industry has changed. There's just a wide array of gear and availability, and also camera sensors have gotten better, so you don't have to rely on so much lighting. Sound has gotten better, equipment has gotten better, so that it really is. It's turning into, you just kind of have to be the person that can show up and shoot cool stuff. And as big ad agencies who work with big companies are kind of paring down a little bit, you're seeing influencers and types of people from all over the world who can shoot unique and cool looking things getting jobs because they can come and they can execute a lot of different things. So I think the tastes are changing. No longer do we need that super polished, very elegantly lit thing. There's a time and place for that, and that definitely does still happen in my career and others. But I think authenticity and raw and real emotions, and people know when they're being sold something, so they want to see somebody just be real. The last 10 or 15 years with this reality TV thing, we have all kind of realized of what is real and what isn't, right? And I think that most companies are and most people producing content are going for authenticity. And how can you do that? Is it with bringing big cameras and lights, or a smaller camera package where you're not as intrusive and you can really capture something authentically, if that
Yeah,
makes
so
sense?
what would you say? Are you an iPhone or an Android
Oh, I'm
guy?
an iPhone. I'm an Apple fanboy, always have been. So yeah, I like things that just work great. I'm a tinkerer, and I like tinkering with drones and stuff like that. But I'm not trying to like tinker my phone. I like things that just work really well together. In my iMac and my iPhone and my Apple Vision Pro headset, and like I like that ecosystem.
Yeah, it all kind of just sinks in together.
Yeah.
Okay, great. What are some pros and cons in this field?
Well, some pros. Definitely are the freedom, right? Freedom to choose well, I'll speak as a freelance cinematographer, as somebody who gets to go in a lot of different directions. I enjoy the freedom to choose. I enjoy the creativity of it. I enjoy, with my line of work, I enjoy the travel and the adventures to go somewhere and tell a story. And in the sports world, you have access to amazing stories of people doing amazing things. And so that's what I love to do. It keeps me, I do kind of, I've long struggled with ADHD myself, and for some for a real job, I guess that would be a detriment. But for this job, I consider it a superpower. I mean, really being able to multitask with new stimulus, with new people, a new puzzle to figure out, like, this is the industry for me. This is where I can play with new tools and fail and experiment. And also, I'm a people person, so like it's that those are the pros of what I do for my personality in this job. Obviously, the cons. some early on instability, right? You're trying to figure yourself out. You're
Right.
trying to get your foot into doors. You're trying to like reach out to people. It's a very noisy space sometimes, and everybody's trying to like. So instability. There's no like safety net early on, and that was tough for me with a young family with young daughters. I've got three daughters, and that was tough on the family in the beginning. Is trying to figure it out and navigate while having a family. Um, there's sacrifices that are made, some birthdays or an anniversary, sometimes gets missed. So those are cons, but I feel like I've kind of regained a little bit of power of that now that I've made it to a certain point where I can dictate a
Right.
little bit more and choose my jobs a little bit better and be open and honest about, to the people who are hiring me. So, there's pros and cons, but I feel like I've made it over a hump into I'm in a really good situation for myself. It's not for everybody, but it's amazing
Right.
for myself and my family.
Right. That was going to be my next question about work-life balance. How do you feel that
Yeah.
this job, that this career that you've picked, gives you the work-life balance that you need? You mentioned having, early on with three, young children, you were a young family, had a very young family, as opposed to real estate, where I'm sure, you were
That was also
had
unpredictable
more,
though.
very unpredictable. You're absolutely right. But you had more of a home base, I think that
Yeah.
this kind
Well,
of
I was
gives you the
home.
versatility.
Literally, I was home, at least, but I wasn't always happy. I was kind of stressed out, and thankfully I got out of the real estate industry before my kids, really came along and grew up. Because that's a different kind of a stressful situation. Like I feel like I thrived in real estate because I'm like a left right brain type of person. I've got like the creative right brain, but I've got like the analytical left brain. And in most situations, if somebody's just all creative, they rely on left brain people to execute things for them, right? And the left brain people are like, just give us an idea and we can execute it. It's that easy, and they're relying on somebody's creativity. So I think that real estate and what I'm doing now both have split my brain into utilizing both of those things. So it was good, but there's too much unpredictability with other things that are outside of your control, like the market that just crashed, right? I started off by helping people achieve like their life's dream of owning a home, and then the market crashed, and then I was trying to help negotiate giving keys back to the bank for short sales. Do you know what I mean? It's like it became just kind of
Yeah.
sad work, and I was like, okay, I don't necessarily want to be doing that. And so that's where I pivoted to try to, do something that's a little more life-giving. And I'm thankful for that opportunity. And to this day, I can say that real estate really trained me and prepared me for this industry of working with new personalities, like an open house, like somebody's coming into an open house, 50 people, and I have to have the gift of gab and talk with them and make them comfortable with me as a person and with my knowledge. And that is the same in this world that I do. When I'm working with a new producer, it's more about the vibe and how you can make somebody feel on set and while we're doing something. And I feel like that's probably been a big part of my success is being kind of the vibe who can also make people feel comfortable, which then lowers down, walls, and you can get the most authentic version of somebody when I'm shooting an athlete, right? So
Right.
they both kind of intertwine, but I'm happy to be where I am now.
Okay, great. Um, what are some skills do you think that are vital to this career? You definitely mentioned being versatile in your personality, being able to kind of read the room, know the folks that are coming in, whether you know them or you don't know them, but being able to work with everybody. Just what are some, vital skills in this career that you think are necessary, to somebody that's starting out, that you would give them pointers saying, hey, you know what? Besides learning the camera aspect, you also really, really need to work on your
Well, your
interpersonal
people,
skills, these
your
things.
personal
Yeah.
skills, yeah, your hard and your soft skills, right? Um, Listening, being a good listener, adaptability. Um, that's probably the big one because things are changing so much, and also jobs change in the moment, right? Like things just don't go your way, or like, hey, we got 5 minutes to like this interview and do it in somebody's living room, and we got to make it happen. So adaptability and being able to go with the flow, being malleable, being able to pivot quickly and stay cool under pressure. I think those are all the main skills required for what I do. Obviously, being a student of the craft and like learning the new tools and figuring out different ways to light things and stuff, all of that is but being a human showing up and interacting with other humans is kind of the first skill because I've seen a lot of very talented DPs in this industry who don't quite have that skill. The connection, the human connection, the putting somebody's mind at ease, and they get frustrated. And doesn't matter how good of a DP you are or how good you can light something. That's not the type of person that I always want to work with on a situation like that. So it's you as a person in conjunction with the vital skills necessary to do the job.
Right, right. So you use the term there, DP. What's a DP?
The way I'm using it is director of photography. That's like
Okay.
kind of the key point position on set. That's how I make a career. Um, I pride myself on being the guy that can show up with the most tools and get the most done in a day by himself. Meaning I involve myself with gimbals and steady cams and drones and time lapses and motion control time lapses, and I know how to light things, and I can do kind of everything myself. But the real beauty is when you can add in some other people, right? An audio mixer
Right.
and my buddy Caleb, who comes along with me as a B cam slash AC and assistant camera who helps with just all the gear and moving that around. And what I've realized is that kind of frees my brain up to be able to think more of the creative and be with the producer and talk about that and not have to be the guy always charging the batteries and making sure that the footage is getting dumped properly. So, when you add team members, you can grow. But I have over the last 10 years, I've made a living by building small teams, small crews, and going out and executing on a high level. So it's not always the same people. Oftentimes it is because we work well together and we all have this like unsaid language and how the gear gets handled and how everything gets done. And then that's less stress off of my brain. But yeah, that's been my life is building small teams and going to a location and executing on a high level.
Yeah, I would guess I would want to point that out as probably one of your biggest success factors and what makes you so successful in this industry. Is there anything else you'd like to mention about some of your success factors in the industry?
Um, I don't know. It's a weird thing. I'm still like figuring it out, to tell you the truth. I'm 44. I'm pretty young in this industry still. Do you know what I mean? Like there's
Yeah, I
young
do.
kids coming up who can do some really awesome stuff, but really there's no shortcut to this. And I at NBC Sports, I'm one of the younger, DPs that they call on for their higher end stuff. Two of the guys I came up under. And I learned from them, and now I'm kind of running my own jobs, and sometimes we come together on other jobs and multi. So, um, what was your original question? I totally forgot. My
It's
mind
okay.
blank, but
What would you say is one of your biggest success factors? And what would you offer someone just starting out in this industry?
I think that the growth mindset is what is been the biggest thing for me. I've never really just gotten comfortable. I'm constantly always trying to play with new gear and to figure something out and breaking tools and figuring it out and then introducing it on a job and trying something new. And the people that hire me, that's what they want to see. They don't want to see the same stale kind of thing. They want to see somebody who wants to try something. It's my kind of motto is I come back with on every job about 85% solid stuff you can use and 15% a little bit experimental and stuff that's going to push the boundary in a different way. And maybe it's not right for this one, but that's how I'm trying to constantly push the boundaries with what I'm doing. And really my only job is to provide all the pieces for a talented editor and a director to piece together a new kind of story in a new kind of way, right? That can connect with an
Right.
audience. So, um, yeah, growth mindset and adaptability and not just being a good cinematographer or DP, but being just kind of a good human that can conversate, get along. I'm like a chameleon. I adapt myself to who I'm dealing with, and when you can make somebody specifically feel comfortable with you and how you talk and your abilities and the tools that you're bringing, then yeah, it's a more successful situation for everybody. That's what I've experienced.
Right. Now, you say you've been doing this for the past 10 years, and that's definitely, a long time. But what would you say, if you can just lend some personal, experience to this, would be one of the most difficult photo shoots that you had, where you were by yourself, right? So you say you're kind of like a one-man team, you experiment with a lot of things. What would you say was your most difficult experience? However, you had, this kind of training that helped you get through it. Whether that's, you said you did extreme sports, whether it was ice skating or snowboarding, or, maybe riding along somebody on a horse while you're shooting, things like that. What would you
I've
say
done
would be your most
I've
difficult?
I've I've been in so many crazy situations. Ice skates on the ice with the Olympics ice skating team. A lot of unpredictable situations, and people asking me to do a lot of crazy things. And I'm kind of known as that guy who can like has the right equipment to like figure it out. Oh, we can't do this with a drone by hanging out the side of the car, or by with a gimbal by hanging out. So let's put the drone up. I think you know uh your question again was sorry, my
What has been your
ADHD.
most difficult, right? So something that you
Difficult.
just
Oh, here. I knew
necessarily.
where I was going. It the most difficult situations for me was kind of how I started out. After I got out of real estate, I got into weddings, right? Which sometimes are looked at as kind of the dog of the industry. It's tough, but that is where I learned all of my skills, right? Because I would often go by myself or bring one person along to help me shoot. You have to manage everybody's expectations, including the bride and the mother of the bride and everybody. You have to be a little bit of a chameleon. You have to stay out of the way. You have to shoot authentically. You have to know all of your gear, not just video and like stabilizers and gimbals or drones, but also audio. Right. And then I would take it even a step further when I was doing weddings where I would like shoot for a little bit and then I'd go in a back room and I'd cut together a highlight reel of stuff that I had shot earlier in the day. And I would play that while they were cutting the cake. And so those kind of high stakes situations, when you get enough reps of those, when you go to shoot the Olympics or like you have to show up and shoot an athlete that's only going to perform something one time, it's not as nerve-wracking, right? That's so that like being able to start in that direction and really learn in the trenches of like weddings, and it's not a horrible industry. I'm not trying to dog it in any way. In fact, I would, that's an amazing niche for certain people. But it is a difficult place to learn, and that's kind of where I learned, and it definitely prepared me for what I do now.
Where do you see this industry going in the future?
Oh my gosh, it's changing fast. Not gonna lie. I feel fortunate to be involved with the sports industry, telling real people, real stories. But I'm sure, as you know, like the movie industry is changing a lot. Fictional movies and how those are being made, and the introduction of AI and all sorts of other things. Like things are changing, and I think people and big studios and streamers are a little scared and nervous, and they're trying to navigate this as well. And so. I'm not a futurist. I'm not going to tell you exactly where this is going. I do know that things are changing, and this goes back to my idea of like you got to be adaptable and you got to be, kind of a jack of all and be able to move in different directions and learn new pieces of gear and implement it in what you're doing. That's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing the last 10 years of me kind of being a jack of all who can get a lot done by himself and then adding on crews. I'm seeing myself have more success now when those bigger jobs aren't necessarily $1 million jobs going to a big ad agency. It's more like, let's bring in Aaron and his small team who can execute on a high level. It's not going to cost us as much money. I'm getting more of my equipment on the job. So I think we're being asked to know more. We're being asked
Mm.
to know different cameras and to know more about audio and to know about cleaning the audio with AI tools. Things are just changing a lot. And I think that's great. because it's a resetting of the industry also, and it kind of breaks down the barriers. When I was starting out, there was a way you get into this industry, right? You go be a PA and you pour coffee and you make coffee and you make copies of scripts and you like assist on a set. And then maybe a camera guy was like, "Hey, you want to be a camera PA?" And you start to learn a little bit. Like there was a way that you went about doing this. And that's an industry route, right? If like a union, if you're going to go work TV films and you want to do that kind of thing in Atlanta or LA or somewhere else. I went a different route, which was I kind of just arrived. I learned a bunch of skills, and then I just started presenting myself as somebody who had a lot of skills and can get a lot of stuff done. And that has carried me to where I am now. So I don't think that the same like barriers to entry are there anymore. Really, anybody who has an internet connection and can do some research on AI and get their questions answered and do a deep dive in YouTube and learn some stuff and then get a camera and then go out and try to make some stuff themselves and grow. Like that person has just as and those types of people who can just do cool stuff, right? With drones or 360 cameras or whatever, they're getting jobs and they're getting flown from all over the world to like Marriott hotels to like do their brand campaign. Like things are changing right now.
That's right.
And it's a resetting and it's cool and it's scary also for a lot of people uh who are stuck in their ways and don't have quite the growth mindset. When I was starting out, like my teachers were like, be the best at one job and you'll always work, right? So to me, I was like, okay, I'm gonna be a drone operator. This is early drones. DJI came out with their first drone, and I put a GoPro hard mounted onto that without even a stabilizer or anything. And I was trying to get new shots, right? And then I quickly got better at that, and I was getting cool shots on the road and these travel shows that I was going to, and I was the drone guy for a little while. And then guess what happened? The technology changed and drones got a lot better, and they basically are flying themselves with GPS and auto tracking and everything else. So the difference between what I was able to do with a drone and what kind of any new person who just bought the newest drone could do was very small. And so that one skill became a little bit obsolete. You can't just focus on that one thing. So that prompted me to realize, okay, I need to be the guy that has as many tools on my belt as I can to be the one guy to show up with all the different tools. And then that guarantees that will have job security, that I can be the guy that can execute all those. It saves the client money. I make more money myself on the day, which is also, as somebody who enjoys spending time with his family, that's tough when you're out just kind of cranking on somebody else's project and you have the one skill and you're only getting paid for that one skill. You got to be gone a lot to make a decent amount of money, and that pulls you away from your family and stuff. So I realized the only way out of this kind of race was to stack up my belt full of skills, be able to make more on a day, work less days in a year, be more fulfilled with the jobs I'm doing. And so that's been my strategy that has kind of worked for me. And if I was going to go back, I used to compare myself to what other people are doing and how they're doing it and the cameras they're using and how they're shooting it and their skills. I think it's really all about, and to anybody like listening to this, it's all about like all in on you and what your interests are and what you're into, because that makes the total package, right? That makes your eye and how you see things. And like, me, I like shooting dancers and acrobats and improving with people and being able to keep up and adapt. And so that becomes my niche, and that's what I do. And that's what people call me to do. So
Right.
that
Are
that
you a
was a
member of
long way
any
around
No, no,
to
no, no, no. It's perfect. It's perfect. That's
okay.
exactly what we want to hear. Are you a member of any professional associations or organizations, or are there any pieces of literature that people could look at as resources in the field? I know you mentioned YouTube, and
There's so much
as
online that
students,
you can get
yeah,
these
as
days, and it's
academics.
all free. I've grown up with a subscription to American Cinematographer because of my dad, and so I would see that come in the mail, and that was an opportunity for me to see the coolest, newest camera stuff and how it was used on the latest film, Dune or Wicked or whatever, and how they shot that. So I love those kinds of things, but there's so many BTS videos now of like showing sets and behind the scenes of every big motion picture, so you can see the tools that they use, how they're doing it. I think a lot of the information is out there. I am not a part of the union. I'm qualified and I could join the union. That is just not really a path or jobs that I specifically want to go at this point. If I was going to get more heavily into commercial work and doing that kind of stuff, then that would be something that I would need to do. Uh, Join local 600 and as a DP and then go up the ranks that way. My dad was a union camera operator, and I feel like I I like how can I best say this? I'm not fit to be on a month and a half long film being the guy that just moves the camera. Do you know what I mean? I like these
Right.
smaller crews where we can be way more creative. I've got more creative input in what we're doing. And so that's just my niche. That's what I love to do. It doesn't mean I can't pivot into this other world and do that. It's just not something that I'm focused on right now. So yeah, I'm not a part of any I do go to a lot of industry events and I meet up with other, you know, camera operators and DPs and stuff like that, but I don't make a living in the union. I do mainly non-union work, and that encompasses a whole array of things, including the sports world is traditionally non-union.
Right. Can you think of any long-term career opportunities within the industry? I know you mentioned that there's, unionized and non-unionized. When you're non-union, you kind of have the ability to hone in on your own creativity. But are there any kind of other long-term, career goals that you can think about just in the industry for somebody new coming into the industry? Could you say, hey, long term, you can look down the road 10 years and be here? And I know that technology plays a big part in that, but is there something that maybe you could tell a newcomer coming in saying, hey, this is really what I want to do?
I mean, I really do think I'm doing what I really love to do, to tell you the truth. I love being in action. And so for me to take the step above that to be, I have done this a couple times as a director or a creative director where I'm a little less hands off and I'm more of the overall thing. And that's great and that's fun. There's more stress that comes along with that sometimes. There's different opportunities. I still love being at the center of being wearing the camera and being the guy that executes the visions. And I think I'm going to do that for as long as my body will allow me to do that.
Right.
But I think people coming in now, you kind of have to know it all. So you got to dive in and you got to first get your feet wet in the trenches of like using the cameras and stuff before you can even get to the next step of like directing somebody else to execute a vision for you or being a creative
Mhm.
director. It's pertinent and it's important to like know how to do things yourself and to like go through that process and kind of fail a little bit to know what you're asking other people to do, if you want to continue on above that, which
Right.
is great. I'm looking at immersive storytelling and new technology and content being shot for Apple Vision Pro headsets and where that's going in the sports and music world. And so I'm like a techno kind of I love the newest, coolest gadgets and tech, and I dabble in it heavily until I can
Right.
incorporate it into what I'm basically doing. So I don't see that changing. I feel like that we're coming into a period of a lot of innovation and a lot of change, and I'm excited about that.
Great. Now I
Oh,
see you have on your
also,
super. Go
oh yeah,
ahead.
no, I was just gonna say also, I would long-term career stuff for me. I would love to do some more mentoring, some consulting, some, I think that I have been I've been really fortunate with being able to make a career in this industry, and I think that a lot of people think that it's unattainable and it's hard to get into or it's hard to break into, especially now if you're going to go a traditional route. So I love talking to young people. My daughters are in video production at their high school, and I'm trying to do a hands-off approach and let them kind of get a natural love for it. So before I can like take them on jobs and be like, let's go on an adventure. But
Right.
I think I'm passionate about teaching the next generation of people coming up, young adults coming up, and that's why Quincy reached out to me, and that's why I'm here talking to you now because you know I am passionate about these kinds of things and like kind of sharing my knowledge and showing that like it doesn't have to necessarily be a traditional route. You can dabble in a few different things. You throw yourself in a lot of different directions and see what you love and see what you're good at, and then go that direction. And I feel like one of my strong points is like I don't hit dead ends. I don't be like, oh damn, that didn't work out. Got to go back here. I like hit like a little fork in the road, and I pivot and I go this way, and I pivot and I go this way, and so that for me has been the recipe for the longevity of what I've experienced in what I'm doing.
Right, right, right. Now I see you have on your Super Bowl shirt there. Did you do any footage for the Super Bowl that just passed in February?
This one was for 2022, the Super Bowl that was at SoFi Stadium. I was part of the for NBC Sports. I did a lot of the pre-game stuff. So there's 5 hours of content that happens before the Super. So that's like shooting features with Snoop and his Pop Warner football team and doing interviews. I also got to shoot on the halftime show, the making of that halftime show with Kendrick and Snoop and Mary J. Blige and Eminem and all them. So I did a lot of those interviews and the pre-game features and stuff. And then on the actual day for the Super Bowl, I shot for NBC and covered and focused on how NBC covers the Super Bowl and the technology that they use and how they actually execute a big show like that. And so the video that I shot was edited together by NBC and used as a pitch for a sports Emmy for remote production of. And so that's we won an Emmy for this Super Bowl. The NBC, the way the Super Bowl works is the broadcasters, there's Fox and ESPN and NBC and CBS, they all get a turn. It goes in like order on who gets to do the Super Bowl. So it's coming back around again. And in 2026, NBC is going to be doing the Super Bowl again. So that will bring new opportunities to tell stories leading up to it, coach interviews, player interviews, stuff like that. I'm also going to be doing the Winter Olympics in Milan and Cortina, which is in the north of Italy, for NBC. So there could be some going back and forth, getting on a plane, going to Milan, doing that kind of stuff. But that's why I love this job. Is there's so many different avenues and so many different opportunities and adventures. And so yeah, always looking forward to a Super Bowl. Super Bowls are awesome.
So you say that you've been in the industry for 10 years, but what would you have told yourself 15 years ago? And I know that that's when you would have been in real estate, but I know if you could have knowing
No,
what you know
I've been in
now.
for 15 years easily in this industry. So, but in real estate, if I was going to give some advice to my past self, I think it would be trust your instincts and your taste and go all in on what you do. And like I have an ADHD brain that likes to figure and tinker, and that led me to gimbals and and drones and like different tools and so that all encompasses me and my style. And I can tell you this: there's not many other Aaron Mendez's out there. There just isn't that puts together, what I can bring. And I'm not trying to get all the jobs. I'm trying to get the jobs that are perfect for me and my skills and my temperament and how I like to work. Right. And if I could project that out into the world through Instagram and showing what I like to do, that's how Instagram works for me. People see, oh, this guy does this. Okay, we should probably reach out to this guy. So that's what I would tell myself 15 years ago. Pay less attention to what other people are doing and go your own path, knowing that it's going to pay off and those jobs are going to, you don't want to be pretending to be something you're not, because you're going to get jobs that you're not necessarily into or wanting to do. So it is all about like owning who you are, not only as a person, but as your skills and and how you present yourself. I would also tell myself 15 years ago to take care of your body, because this does beat you up a little bit. And I do carry cameras around everywhere, and I have now got a better relationship with that. I always kind of consider myself a pseudo athlete that can like kind of get by, and I'm keeping up with athletes, and I'm riding one wheels, and I'm getting out on the ice, but I never treated my body like an athlete. And I feel like now at age 44, I'm realizing, okay, well, that needs to be a priority, because otherwise I'm hurting myself on jobs by carrying this big camera rig around for 8 hours in a day, and it's harder to reset for the next day. So yeah, take care of your body. You know, in all the ways, whatever that means to you, mainly strength and balance. And that's kind of stuff and coordination and brain stuff. That's what I focus on these days.
That's really important. I think that it's super important that you mentioned how it's important to take care of yourself physically as well mentally in order to really, really be successful in this job. And I really wanted to thank you to for saying that, you have ADHD, it was recognized early on and that you found a career that helps you function with your ADHD. And it's actually become, you know, very, very useful in your career field because you're able to, use that skill to
Hmm.
just explore other things, right? Explore your creativity, explore the way that you use gimbals, you use cameras, use your energy and, really take care of yourself. I really want to thank you for that, for being an advocate and, being honest and sharing that with us.
Fully on board with that. And mental health is super important too. And we all go through periods of struggling. And do therapy in different ways. Sometimes it's just getting on my mountain bike and going and exercising and getting some of that stuff out of me. But it's also like talking to a therapist and helping navigate certain things in my life. I mean, I wish that kind of the stigma kind of changes on that, and I think it kind of is. But I think we can all kind of benefit from that kind of like um, perspective and look in on our own brains and how, because we're all different and unique in so many different ways. And yeah, there's so many different jobs and opportunities. And like, yeah, you can pick the wrong job for like you and your brain and how you operate. I definitely have multiple times. And so um I think that's okay to try different things and realize that like that's not for me. And then you just got to pivot and keep going and pivot and keep
Right.
going. And so I think that's
Right.
important.
Definitely. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Mhm.
We only have about two more questions left, and the one of them is, why are platforms like Functional Training Zone important to young adults? And I just want to thank you for interviewing with us, but why do you think that this platform is just so important? I know that you touched on that earlier, um, but if you can just emphasize a little bit more.
I think that
You
young
mentioned mentorship, you mentioned bringing, younger cinematographers along.
Sure. I think young people these days need to realize that there are non-traditional paths and career paths, right? It's no longer necessarily, you've got your five options. You're going to go work in an office somewhere. You're going to be a lawyer, doctor, there's so many different things, and there's jobs being created now, and there's a lot of jobs that are going away. So I think that traditional schooling is kind of falling behind a little bit. They're preparing some of these young adults for a world that is not necessarily going to be there when they graduate. And I think that some people are realizing that now. So programs like this show people that like you can just be a badass at a drone and you can make, seven. I know guys who fly drones exclusively and they make between seven and $10,000 a day. And these are guys who like grew up on video games and like they have the hand-eye coordination and like they found their path and that's their career. And they're making really good money and they're fulfilled and doing awesome things. So I think that like this is important to show people that there are so many different ways, and also don't be discouraged. That you're going to hit roadblocks, and that's all part of this. This is all part of this is like figuring out who you are, gaining some self-awareness about how you like to work, the types of people you like to work with, what you're good at, what you're not good at, and then going all in on that. And that's a journey. That's not something you figure out like right out of high school and then choose a career path and then go. Like for me, it definitely wasn't. This was a 10-year kind of like figure things out and that's why I'm at where I'm at now. But I also believe that, this line of work specifically, creative storytelling, is more needed now than ever. And I think that with a lot of the stuff that is going on in our country, in the world, I think that human stories matter. And I think that, resiliency, and that's why I love sports. There's so many great, just awesome sports stories in that. And it's real people doing real things. And I think, and I know some people put like these athletes up on these pedestals, LeBron James and the Michael Jordan and the Michael Phelps of swimming, they put them up on these pedestals. But I've been able to shoot with a lot of these people, and they're just normal people who have a natural ability and put in more work than anybody else. There's no doubt about that to me, because working with athletes, you see it. You're like, I know, I see Tiger Woods. He's swung the golf club more times than anybody. And he has got a natural ability, and then he put in more time than anybody else. So I mean, I feel like that kind of went off on a little tangent, but
Right.
ultimately, I want to tell real stories with real people, and I think that is important to let people know that is a viable thing. We All of these stories need to be told, whether it be, in all the ways, politically, culturally, in sport, in disabilities, in how we are human, the human aspect of things. That's also why I love what I do, this documentary kind of sports and real people doing real things, and why I'm not necessarily signing up to go move a camera on like a Marvel film. Do you know what I mean? Like that, like
Right.
I've got a passion for the human side of like this storytelling and using these tools to do that. And that's not for everybody. It's definitely for me though.
Right. No, that's awesome. Thank you very much. If one of our listeners, any of our listeners, all of our listeners want to connect with you, want to see your social media, want to dive into more of what you do, maybe even, look at the YouTube Canon in the sports world, where could they find you? Where could they look at some of the stuff that you've done, as a start to getting into this career field?
So I'm a little embarrassed to admit this, but most of my stuff is just kind of through Instagram. I have a website. I don't update it much. I think that I could do that, but I have gotten to a point where, the people who hire me continue to hire me, and so I've got like the 6 or 7 different NBC sports out there. So I haven't put a lot of time and energy into like um, building a website or curating a YouTube page and stuff like that. I do a lot of my storytelling, and I post a lot about the jobs that I'm on and the people that I'm working with and the tools that I'm using on my Instagram. And my Instagram is at Aaron Mendez Films, AARONMENDEZ Films, FILMS. And my DMs are always open. You shoot me a question. I love enjoying interacting with people who've got questions about specific things. I'm also just like talking like this. I'm down to do this, and I enjoy doing this. So reach out to me there. That's where I'll be. And yeah, looking forward to connecting with anybody.
Thank you very much. I'm actually on your Instagram right now, and I see some of the stuff that you've done with Snoop Dogg. How athletic you are. Definitely, um, that is pretty awesome, and all the cameras that you've used. Sorry, I do have to go back one because you mentioned something that was really, really something that kind of touches my heart, and
Hmm.
I can you talk a little bit about work that you've done with athletes that have disabilities and
Oh yeah.
um I mean, to me that's just super interesting. I started watching a reality show about folks with disabilities, and when I see how just you kind of worked with them and captured a lot of their stories, could you go into that a little bit? It just seems
Well,
really
yeah, no
interesting to
doubt.
me.
I got into the sports world, and then through NBC, there's the Olympics and there's the Paralympics, and the Paralympics is for adaptive athletes that use. This is not the Special Olympics. This is people who have. Uh, uh, the Olympics is for neurological disorders and stuff like that. Um, the Paralympics is for people. You thought the sports people had crazy stories. Paralympians have crazy stories because they went through a whole other world just to get to where they are, to come back and then start training for a sport or an activity. I've shot with a documentary with the wheelchair rugby team. I've shot with Paralympic swimmers. I've shot with, all different kinds of of athletes with disabilities. And I've been fortunate to do that through NBC. And then that piqued my curiosity. And then I throw myself at other situations that don't necessarily have money, but I believe, needs to have a spotlight shown on them. And, the fact of the matter is we will all, the 15% of us will be, more than 15, we'll all be disabled at some point in our lives. It's just a matter of when, right? So
Right.
so to ignore this subset of people and their stories is an injustice. And so I believe in that. I also heavy into working with veterans and vets with PTSD and kind of reintegrating themselves. I work with this awesome group, this acrobatic dance group called Diablo, and they bring in veterans with suffering with PTSD and other things, and use dance as a way and movement as a way for rehabilitation. And like, so I'm all about, you know, spotlighting stories like that, people with disabilities in all the different ways. And I will continue to do that, because once you kind of go down that road, you don't just like turn around. You're like, okay, well, this is where the real stories are, and these are the stories that need to be told, happen. And I'm glad to see the Paralympic movement coming up almost on par with, not quite, but almost on par with the Olympics, and getting the same kind of notoriety. And NBC's spending the same amount of, not, spending more money for Paralympians and stuff like that. So it's something that I'm super passionate about, and I'm pretty honored to be able to do that in this industry.
Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I appreciate our conversation. I appreciate all the knowledge that you've shared. Again, your Instagram is Aaron Mendez Films, and it's at Aaron Mendez Films, two
Mhm.
A's, RONMENDEZ Films. And it was a pleasure talking to you. I've definitely learned a lot. You've actually even tapped into some of my own, personal experiences. I have ADHD also, but I went the traditional route. I am an
Mm.
accountant. When you said that
Mm.
you took some business classes, I remember myself kind of sitting there being like, is this really what I want to do? But not having an outlet or an exposure to anything else, and not, being able to hone in on my creative side. So I'm really
Yeah.
thankful for Functional Training Zone in terms of being able to giving me the avenue to meet you, to have this
Mm.
conversation with you, to know that you're never too old or too young to start in a different field, and to really hone in on those creative skills. I just want to thank you very much for this conversation,
Mm.
and for being so open and honest and candid with us, and telling us about everything that you've gone through to, you know, make it in this career. It's definitely a great one. Thank you very much.
No problem. Thanks for having me. I really appreciated the talk, and it was great. And I haven't made anything. I'm still, it's an ongoing journey. We could check back in another 10 years and see where we're at.
That would be great. I would love to do a full circle moment with you. Thank you.
Great. All right. Thanks for your time. I appreciate you.
The most valuable commodity I know of is information. Wouldn't you agree?
I don't even know what that means.
No one knows what it means, but it's provocative.
No, it's not.
It gets the people going.
It's
Now!
It's your boy JR dropping them beats.